You can learn to network, you can be taught how to network, but sometimes people say that men are better networkers than women. Women are better at social networking than men. So what is the reality? Well, Busara Leadership Partners have done extensive research into this particular topic, and the chief executive, Dudu Msomi, is with us. Dudu, are men better networkers than women?
In terms of having time, they have the disposable time to network, but in terms of what it is that they get out of it in the long term, it can be very transactional.
Yes, which results in the deal. Therefore, they're better.
They get the job done.
Yes.
But in the long term, in terms of building relationships which are robust and are beyond sports and business. However, women don't see themselves as good networkers anyway, because they usually say, you need the time to network. We don't have 5 hours to spend on the golf course. We need a wife at home, and I happen to be the wife at home. So if I have a wife, I'll have plenty of time to network.
But it comes down to social structure, doesn't it? Because the structure of our society still is very much men go out and earn the big bucks and the big jobs, and women traditionally will be at home more. They may be at work, but will spend more time at home than men will. It goes down to that.
Yeah, but also until, as have you read Lean In? By
Lean In? No, I haven't read Lean In yet.
Where she says until half of our institutions are run by women and half of our homes are run by men, nothing has changed. So when women get into the business environment, they do need support at home as well, and they haven't really gotten that support. But when things are changing in the workplace, things will change at home eventually, but they're just not changing as fast in terms of networking.
Good, and I run the risk of being accused of being sexist and all sorts of terrible things, but I'm willing to take the risk. Yeah. Women generally tend to be better at managing longer-term relationships than transactional men are. Did that come through in the research? It
comes through. The amazing part, which women should learn from men, a man is able to phone somebody he hasn't spoken to in 20 years.
Hey, how's it, buddy? How you doing?
And things will happen. A woman doesn't take too kindly. If you haven't spoken to her for a long time, doesn't take too kindly when you phone and ask for a favor. And that's something we have to learn. In the business environment, it's about what's mutually beneficial in that situation. It's not about just building friendships.
But how do you break that? Because if our natures are different, and if our natures are transactional versus relationships, is it possible to cross those divides or make the use of perhaps of each other's best qualities?
Actually, what's helping us now is also technology. Technology is allowing us to keep in touch. So you're on Facebook, you're on LinkedIn. So you don't have to see somebody every day. You don't have to be playing golf with them, for 5 hours or going to the bush for the weekend. Now you can just send a message. You can say happy birthday. At least keep yourself top of mind. So technology is helping us a hell of a lot.
In the context of doing business, however, the relationship has got to ultimately trump the transaction, or is it not the case?
Both are just as important. There are times where really you do business with people you don't really have long-term relationships with. Trust is very important. That's why a relationship is important in building. But there are times, which is part of our problem actually in South Africa. Part of why we have so many challenges with regards to BE transactions is you focus on the transaction and not on the relationship, not on the principles, not on the value systems. And we need to change that because you do better business with people that you have values more aligned to yours.
So how then does networking in the South African context evolve?
In South Africa, I must say, men brought up this. They kind of brought up that we're not as mature in networking as developed countries, which for me was a bit of a shocker. We still very much hang out in our groups, women with women, men with men. And when we do come together, there are usually these uncomfortable situations which arise, which can be called sexual harassment or making moves when you shouldn't really be making moves. So there was that kind of feeling that in South Africa, we tend to blur the lines. In developed countries, like in the US, you kind of set your boundaries, and if somebody doesn't comply, you sue them.
Yeah, but there's an immaturity, it's a social immaturity that we have in South Africa as well. Men are usually very awkward in female company. Women happen to be better in male company than men are in female company. Personal experience.
Yeah, because it's not something we have been brought up doing. But the more we mix, the more women get into corporate, get into the workplace, the more normal it is. The only reason it is awkward is because we're not used to interacting with the other gender in the workplace.
But it also comes down to a fundamental lack, possibly, of respect in the workplace as well. If you think that you're going to be held up for sexual harassment by a female colleague, you don't have adequate respect for the person's abilities.
Yeah. If you see people as sexual beings and not as intellectual equals, that's what will happen. And we're all kind of evolving. We are evolving. It's a different context. We're still very much a patriarchal society. And that's changing. South Africa, as you know, has the most advanced constitution in the world. And part of that comes equity and equality between men and women.
It doesn't make the slightest bit of difference unless we internalize it.
Precisely.
And actually live it.
That's the next stage. That is the next stage. And I think the younger generation that's coming up, they growing up with mother and father being in the workplace. For them, it's normal. There was a generation that grew up with mother being in the kitchen and father being at work. So the younger generation finds this normal now.
So there is hope.
There is. Always hope.
How far away?
Like tomorrow.
Hopefully. Dudu Msomi, she is a networker extraordinaire. She's the chief executive of Busara Leadership Partners. Interesting research into the world of networking.